I don't think I have to go on a whole spiel on what wave dashing is. I'm pretty sure even the most casual of casual person that has ever seen Melee ever can identify what wave dashing is. I think the better question in order to be said is, why is it so common? And I think that reason is pretty simple. It's cool. If anyone hasn't noticed, there's tons of platform fighters out there that have adopted this sort of mechanic for them to use. Rivals of Aether, Stardust Valkyrie, Rushdown Revolt, we all have seen them use wave dashing. And as I've said before, I don't really think it's just to mimic Melee, I think it's really the fact that it's a cool mechanic to have. Simply having wave dashes sort of changes the game when it comes to any sort of platform fighter. It's an extra movement option that gives you a burst of speed that you can catch people or do other sort of combos with, which pretty much does something that a simple walk or a simple dash cannot do. Momentum that you would have to keep when you were to go into a certain walk or a certain dash, or even just jumping forward, right? You kind of keep the momentum there usually in any sort of other platform fighter. But with wave dashing, it makes it so that instead of only going forward, you can actually go side to side or simply control where you're going to go. And that by far is the best explanation of why. You can control your character better when you have wave dashing. Add on to the fact that wave dashing has become way easier over the years through new platform fighters, it makes it so that more and more people can experience this sorts of thing and sort of understand why wave dashing is so cool. However, we've gotten a lot of platform fighters that have taken this sort of mechanic, so much so that a lot of people are going to the other side of this thought process. Meaning, some people are questioning whether or not we should add wave dashing to every single platform fighter, and maybe that it's getting a little either egregious or it's like a mechanic that is stopping us from doing other things. Which is an important discussion to have, because these sorts of things can really make or break games essentially, just by even having this discussion in the first place. In order to add anything to the discussion, we have to at least look at the other side when it comes to this. Meaning, we have to look at platform fighters that don't have wave dashing. And we have to really determine if they needed it. What's unfortunate about this is that we really only have two big examples that we can really use for this. And it's from the same franchise. But, if you don't really have a problem with that, let's look at the original Smash Brothers, and then let's look at Smash 4. Smash 64 isn't the one thing that people usually think of when they think of Smash Brothers. But even if that's the case, it still has its own identity. There's a lot of mechanics that it has that is in congruence with such things like Melee, but the big thing about it is not that. The biggest thing about this game is actually the combos. The hit stun in this game is so massive that getting 0 to deaths on people is very constant. Add on to the fact that Z dropping, which is cancelling the animation as soon as you were to drop, is easier than in Melee, and this is a recipe for a very interesting game. Pretty safe aerials, ground and movement is okay, and combos last a long time. It's definitely a different sort of experience than even Melee. But that's only the first game. Let's look at the second one. The different thing you notice when you actually get to see tournaments of Smash 4 is definitely the increased amount of neutral game that you see. Not only were ground and normals good, but the shield was also very powerful. This means without having really a good way to do safe aerials against someone, if you hit someone's shield, they are going to grab you and punish you for it. And with a lack of things like dash dancing, it just makes neutral encounters even more prevalent. This means that perfect pivots had to really take the slack when it comes to the neutral in this game. Basically, perfect pivots give you a lot of good options when it came to playing this game. You could bait out opponents, you can go for safe normals, you could grab people if they were shielding, and by doing it multiple times you can actually keep the opponent guessing. And with all of these together, you can clearly see that it makes Smash 4 a very different beast to play. Alright, so we gathered the two games that don't really have wave dashing, but how does that really help us? It helps us in the discussion by kind of proving that you don't need wave dashing in order to be a good platform fighter. You can change the exterior or the interior in order to try to make your own fun in a platform fighter. You can change the interior by changing the game itself, meaning you could change things such as having a high or low hit stun in order to change how the game is played. Or you can change the exterior of what the game has. Just because you don't wave dash in your game doesn't mean that there isn't any other thing that you can do in order to get your burst of movement or to interact with the opponent. As long as you know how you want your players to interact with your game, you can create a lot of alternatives when it comes to like wave dashing. However, does this mean that you should never ever even consider wave dashing at all? No, I don't really think so. Wave dashing by itself is still fun, and if you make it easy enough, you can slap it on anything in order to give your players momentum and to give your players control of how they play. It's why so many people add it in their games. It's just more fun for the players in order to have this sort of mechanic. But they balance or try to diversify themselves by trying to either give more mechanics or giving you alternative ways in order to, play the game. So I guess with all that, let's go with the conclusion. Does wave dashing need to be in every single platform fighter? No, but you have to count the cost if you are not going to give someone the ability to wave dash in your game. If you're going to get rid of or not include a mechanic like that a lot of people like, then what you should really do is try to either find alternative mechanics or find different ways for your game to play out so that it's still enjoyable even with that. Once you get this, you can understand if you really want to add this sort of mechanic in your game. Let's also not think of wave dashing as a crutch either, because 2D fighters have used the same mechanics throughout the ages in order to put in their games, but they still find ways in order to make them very, very interesting, even when they have conventional means. Just think outside the box and it won't be too difficult, honestly. So I guess that's it. You don't need wave dashing in your games. But fuck, is it cool.